Uh-oh.
Hello, everyone, and good afternoon, and welcome. As people start to trickle in, we will play the ULI membership video. If you could run that, please.
Having the ability to exchange stories, exchange ideas, and really sort of find mentors in the industry via ULI was a huge plus for me.
So one of the things that I first started doing with ULI in terms of active engagement was with their urban plan program. And for me, they basically go into schools and work with young people in junior high and high school.
One of the great things about ULI is that it provides a great platform for public sector and private sector interests to meet.
So it's an opportunity to connect with a variety of people from a variety of different disciplines. So I work in real estate development, but it's useful and important to get to know people in other aspects of city building.
The opportunity to get recognition, the opportunity to participate in my community and give back in a way, all of those things have enhanced my career and I think enhance what I'm able to offer the industry.
I'm really excited to be part of ULI Toronto and really advancing my leadership skills and fostering my connections and really just advancing my mission for city building.
I was a young professional, new to the province, and I found ULI and other kind of similar organizations really helpful in terms of bridging connections and networking.
It's an opportunity to connect with people who have questions, who have not quite figured out how to do things.
And I liked how hands-on you could be as a member. You could get involved immediately, you can volunteer.
For me, ULI is one of the greatest organizations in the world, and certainly in Toronto, to connect, to learn, and to become a part of an organization that really values its people and its members.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Richard Joy, Executive Director of ULI Toronto, and I'm pleased to welcome you to today's session honoring diversity leadership in construction. On May the 10th of this year, the Toronto Community Benefits Network, TCBN, will host its second Building Diversity Awards, BDA, on an evening gala celebrating local talent and champions of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the construction industry. ULI Toronto is proud to host the winners of last year's, the 2021 BDAs, ahead of the 2022 nomination deadline, and to learn how these leaders are targeting the global diversity and inclusion benchmarks as adapted by Buildforce Canada. As always, we begin with a land acknowledgement. As a Toronto region-based organization, we acknowledge that the land we are meeting on virtually is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 of the Mississaugas of the Credit. We are all treaty people. Many of us have come here as settlers, immigrants, and newcomers in this generation or generations past. ULI stands in solidarity with Indigenous communities demanding action and accountability on the ongoing legacy of the residential school system, a milestone of which was reached last week. We also acknowledge and honor those who've come here involuntarily, particularly descendants from those who were brought here through enslavement. To better understand the meaning behind this land acknowledgement, we recommend 4 programs that we have uploaded to YouTube. These links will be posted in the chat. ULI Toronto is also working with our sister real estate organizations in the Toronto region to support the local efforts in response to the escalating crisis of the war in Ukraine. Last week, we hosted a webinar discussing how our industry can support the growing relief effort, including initiatives here in the Toronto region as the refugee and immigration waves arrive in Canada. You can immediately support one of these 2 fundraising or other support opportunities through 2 links that will be posted in the chat as well. the Canadian Ukraine Foundation, and the Red Cross of Canada. We'll also be posting a resource page by the end of today that will be keeping updated on future opportunities to support this effort. Finally, today's event and all other ULI program would not be possible without the support of our annual sponsors. And we'd like to thank them all for that support. Now more than ever, ULI relies on the support of our sponsors to put on high quality programs and to drive the mission to shape the future of the built environment for transformative impacts in communities worldwide. To all of them, we say thank you. Lastly, it is now my pleasure to introduce today's moderator, Rosemary Powell, Executive Director of the Toronto Community Benefits Network. Rosemary will moderate and give an overview of the Building Diversity Awards and drive our program through to 1 p.m. Rosemary, such a great pleasure to have you join the ULI platform and support these awards. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Richard. It is my pleasure to be here today, and I really thank ULI for organizing this webinar with us and sharing the important conversation that is happening right now in the construction space about equity, diversity, and inclusion. And I will give everyone an overview, and then following, there will be a panel with our panelists from last year's awards. And but first, let's get started with a video presentation of what last year was all about for the Building Diversity Awards. Thank you. So that was last year, 2021 Building Diversity Awards. And this year we are going to be having the award ceremony again on May 10. And we hope everybody will be there. And, you know, all throughout the year, we work really hard to implement the good practices to advance equity, diversity, and inclusion in the workplace. And once a year, we get together and we really celebrate those organizations, those unions, those individuals who are making intentional efforts to ensure that people from Black and Indigenous and racialized communities, newcomers, women, are welcome on the job site. And today you will hear from a panelist of 3 of the award recipients from 2021, and to hear about all the efforts that they made that allowed them to be, given the award. But before I present them, let me just go through what this year, 2022 Building Diversity Awards will actually look like. Thank you. So as you can see, next slide, just giving you a little bit of a background about the Toronto Community Benefits Network. We are a community labor coalition with over 120 member organizations and groups. We have over 121 community organizations and labor groups who are members. We work with all levels of governments. We support 6 community benefits projects right now, starting with the Eglinton Crosstown project. And across these projects, we've had over $17 million spent on local businesses and social enterprises. We have 12 of the largest construction unions who are members of the Toronto Community Benefits Network. And as a result of these community benefits agreements that we've been supporting over the last 5 years or so, we've seen over 2,000 people hired. So community benefits is working. Next slide, please. And last year, we were pleased to have Ellis Don as our main sponsor, and Aecon and other construction industry partners who were there with us all the way. And thanks to the CBC for having been our sponsor. Next slide, please. So the Building Diversity Awards will recognize and award exemplary contractors, unions, and client owners, as well as industry champions who are leading on equity, diversity, and inclusion to increase the participation of Black, Indigenous, and racialized workers, including youth, women, and newcomers within their organizations. Recipients of this award will be recognized at the award celebration that is taking place on May 10, 2022. Award recipients will be recognized for one or more steps that they are taking that compares or correspond to the global diversity and inclusion benchmarks. Next slide, please. As you can see, we've already gotten started. The first step was to look at sponsorships. And this year, we're very pleased to have Desjardins come on board as our lead sponsor. And we have a number of other sponsors, and we're still looking for sponsors. So the opportunity is still there. Sponsorships or funds raised will support the TCBN's Next Gen Builders Mentoring Program. We launched the Building Diversity Awards at the Building Show in December of 2021, and now we're right in the middle of nominations. So nominations actually did close on March 31st, but for today, we are announcing that we're going to be extending nominations until April 15th. And we have a judging panel that is arm's length from the TCBN, who will be making those very important decisions. And the awards gala will happen on May 10. Next slide, please. And so here are the categories for nominations, and we really do encourage you to nominate someone. Nominate someone who is leading on diversity, an owner client. Last year, we gave this award to Metrolinx because of their leadership in establishing the first community benefits framework in all of Ontario. And leading on diversity award for contractors, and we awarded this to Crosslinks Transit Solutions because of their collaboration with Metrolinx to implement good practices and change management systems that would make the community benefits project work. We also have the Leading on Diversity Award for unions. Last year, we awarded LAUNA 506 for their leadership and collaboration with Metrolinx and the Crosslinks Transit Solutions for carrying out the first community benefits agreement successfully. And so we're looking for 3 more awardees in this category. And if you know one, if you work at an organization that you think is making good steps, and it doesn't have to be a large company, because sometimes we know that small is mighty. Next page, please. The next category is the Community Benefits Champion. Last year, we awarded this award to Chris Campbell, who you will hear from today on the panel. And this year, we're making it a People's Choice Award, meaning that a Community Benefits Champion will be selected this year and will be determined by the people. So by the members of our network, by those who are coming to the Building Diversity Awards Gala on May 10, you will have an opportunity to be able to vote on the person you understand to be taking extraordinary measures to support the community benefits program in Toronto. So opportunity for nomination is still there. If you know someone in your workplace or in your community, please put their names forward. Next page, please. And the third category is Next Gen Builders. We're looking for a Next Gen Builder champion who is a mentee and a mentor and an employer who has supported the mentee or the mentor in their career journey, or a mentee who has made great strides in their career and taken advantage of all the opportunities that exist within the construction industry to be able to build infrastructure in their community. So if you know one, if you know an up and coming construction worker, or if you know someone who is a professional who's been, just, doing their level best to help out those newcomers when they're coming onto the job site, please put their names forward. This is your opportunity to recognize the good work that they have been doing. Next slide, please. And these are the sponsorship levels. We're still looking for sponsorships, and this information is found on buildingdiversity.ca. We will make sure to recognize your brand, to showcase the good work that you're doing on equity, diversity, and inclusion in the construction industry. If you become a sponsor of the award, and remember, all funds that are raised, from the event will go to support the Next Gen Builders Mentoring Program. Next slide, please. And the next slide, and next slide, and I believe it will end when we say thank you. So can someone put in the chat and just invite folks to make sure that they go to buildingdiversity.ca/nominate and make your nominations today. All right, so let me get started then with inviting our panelists to have a conversation. So I would like to invite Carla Avis Birch, who is the Chief Planning Officer of Metrolinx, Chris Campbell, who is the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Representative of the Carpenters District Council of Ontario, Kimoy Francique, who is an electrician and member of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 353, and Karima Hashmani, who is the Chief Inclusion Officer at Metrolinx. And I'd really like to invite each of them to give us just an overview of what does the Building Diversity Awards mean to you, and just to talk a little bit about yourself and your organization. By the way, bios are located online for each of these amazing panelists, and I would just want to give them the chance to speak to their background and experience in their own words, and then we'll have a conversation. Why don't we start with Carla?
Thank you, Rosemary. We're really happy as being Chief Planning Officer at Metrolinx. We're really glad to be here and really thank you and commend you for all of your work at TCBN. The award that we received last year was really in partnership, as you mentioned, with other groups, Crosslinks in particular. Ellis Don has done some work in there. You talked about LiUNA 506. But, for us, what's important is that it is a partnership. We are committed to really understanding the impacts that we have on communities, on bringing transit, this phenomenal program of really bringing opportunity across the region for these new transit services. But we also recognize the impact that it has through the build, and that the responsibility we have in working with groups with yourselves and really being a connector in a lot of ways to improving the input and the opportunities that come through these projects, but also being a catalyst. And where we can, as you mentioned, the learnings that we have from Eglinton Crosstown project, and where we've been able to really be a catalyst and really help the community, not only the contracting community, ourselves, and how we work to kind of really bring jobs back into the community as deserved. We have a 4-pillar strategy at Metrolinx right now, and we've presented this to our board, and we've had conversations with yourselves and continue with the municipalities and others on that. But we're learning and we're growing, and we do need to operationalize those 4 pillars and really focus on the actual processes to make sure that we have those continued work group, those continued aspirations, those job targets that we're leading and not just sitting back and waiting for things to happen. So we are really proud of the work that we've done so far, but we also recognize that, we may not be hitting all the marks all the time, but the aspiration is there, and we continue to learn and to continue to grow. I am born and raised in Montreal. My parents are from Trinidad and Tobago. diversity and being that one Black girl at Ryerson University, soon not to be called Ryerson University, is something that I live with all the time. And moving into the workforce is nothing short of resilience and persistence that has really not had my spirit dimmed in that space. So I understand what it means to reach out and reach in and pull up. And that is what we're doing here at Metrolinx with our program. And I want to continue to do not only my personal life, but at my role here that affords me here at Metrolinx as well.
Thank you very much. Bonjour, enchanté.
Bonjour, mademoiselle.
Chris Campbell, what about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what does the Building Diversity Awards mean to you?
Absolutely. First, thank you for having me, Rosemary. I see Richard on the line. I see Carla, Kimoy, and Karima. And earlier on, I saw this lady. Is it Thamina? Yes, Thamina. So thank you again, everybody. So yes, I am the Equity Diversity Representative of the Carpenters District Council. I'm also the VP of Local 27. Can you hear me? Okay, good. The VP of Local 27. I'm a provincial representative of the council, so I go around the province and see the representative and sometimes members of the various local units. Yes. Diversity is our strength. Our members are diverse, reflecting the entire gamut of multiculturalism and different makeup of Ontario. And I'm so proud of that. I've been a member of the Carpenters Union for 32 years. Like Carla, she's from Montreal. I was born in Kingston, Jamaica, came here as a teenager, and soon after just jumped straight into the union. Now, what does the BDA Awards mean to me? To me, it's not just another award. It is an event that is planned and organized, and the selection of the awardee is also done, or the community plays a major role in the whole process, right? It's about promoting multiculturalism, diversity in our construction industry. It's about recognizing contractors, organizations, individuals who has contributed to equity diversity in our industry, whether you're in management or you're on the worker side of it, right? So that's why I'm so proud of the awards. And again, I am a proud recipient, so thank you.
Yes, you are indeed a community benefits champion, Chris Campbell. He is also on our board of directors and is the chair of the Toronto Community Benefits Network, so I'm a little bit biased. What about you, Kimoy Francique, as the Next Gen Builders Champion? What made you get such an award? And tell us a little bit of your background.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. Very happy to be here and to share my great feelings about TCBN and the Building Awards. So I would say that I am a licensed electrician and passionate about mentoring. So that's what got me the BDA award. I understand, similar to what Carla was saying, how hard it was for me to come up in the ranks as an electrician and some of the obstacles that I experienced. And I've basically focused and tried to look for young individuals who have a passion to be in construction, but would come across some of the obstacles that I have. And I'm really passionate about creating programs and infrastructure in places so that they don't experience some of the things that I've experienced. And I want to tell you that I have won a few awards in my lifetime, but I must tell you that this is my most proudest of the wins, because somebody that I helped through the connection with TCBN and the Next Gen program. I got linked up with a couple of young people and mentored them, and one of them nominated me. So I still get a little teary because Rosemary for this event sent the write-up from last year. And it just warms my heart to know that somebody truly understands me and gets me and appreciates the effort that I put in. And he's doing excellent now. The gentleman that my young mentor, which is turning into an old, soon to be him starting being a mentor, actually is 4th term. Proud to say he's my brother. IBEW Local 353 will be entering into his 5th term come May of this year. So that's just a little bit about me. And how I feel about the BDA Awards is that I really understand in my industry that if we do not hold up and applaud the industry leaders who are doing it right and doing it well, then we will not encourage new behaviors. And that's exactly what the BDA Awards is. It's celebrating those in our industry. And we know it's a tough industry, but it's celebrating those in our industry who are interested and want to see diversity and change. And so I respect that and just feel really blessed and thankful that I could be a part of it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kimoy. And that's just such a really beautiful story to see that he's in his 4th year or 4th term of his apprenticeship now. Is just incredible. And you helped him, to connect him and to make sure that he had a smooth pathway into what could be a really tough and challenging journey. So congratulations, we respect you. And, just thank you for your leadership. Karima, it is my pleasure to meet you officially. And I'm looking forward to working with you and Metrolinx going forward. Tell us a little bit about you and your background. And what do you think how do you think the Building Diversity Awards, applies to your work?
Thanks. Thank you, Rosemary. Very privileged to be here and honored to be here today amongst all of these esteemed panelists that we have here and you, Rosemary. So I'm new to Metrolinx as the Chief Inclusion Officer. I've been doing equity, diversity, inclusion work for over 15 years. I feel like I'm dating myself now. I've worked in many sectors with newcomers, with youth, within communities, in social housing communities like Regent Park, where we've done a lot of sort of community benefits type of programming, like with this apprenticeships and relocation, especially in the Regent Park community. And my focus has been on access. So hearing about this Building Diversity Awards is really important to me around access and opportunity. I'm from East Africa, from Tanzania, and but I grew up in Thorncliffe and in Scarborough. So access and opportunity are part of who I am and how I navigate the world as a South Asian woman, and trying to understand and putting those connections together are really important to me. So the Building Diversity Awards really sounds like it showcases and supports EDI, which is often not recognized. The work is not recognized. So we know that we have to be intentional about the work. We know that it takes a lot of effort to do this work in various communities. We know that we want to create pathways and opportunities for equity deserving communities. And how we do that is really being intentional, and recognizing and valuing that work is really important to me, especially as an EDI professional, to see this just really is important, that we're recognizing the work, and it's essential. Even if we're not fully there yet, at least recognizing that there are steps being made by so many people in the community to create those pathways are really important. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today, Rosemary.
Thank you. I mean, it's a journey and a continuous improvement process. And so we can't expect perfection on day one, right? But together we can really create the change that we want to see. And I'm really just so proud to see Metrolinx in their hiring is really putting their money where their mouth is and saying that this is really important to them and really hiring people with the lived experience, to be able to lead this work. So I'm looking forward to working with you, and congratulations on your new role. Why don't we get into some of the harder hitting questions? I will ask the first person to just feel free to jump in, and then I'll try to just continue the engagement and pull people out as I think it's appropriate. So here's my first question for the entire panel. What are some specific issues that you are aware of from BIPOC communities, Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities that your organization's approach to diversity, equity, and inclusion can help to address? And what are some of the key initiatives and changes that you're undertaking in your organization or in your work if you're an individual, not necessarily an organization, to create opportunities for these individuals and to advance DEI in the workplace? A long question, but I think it gives us, enough context to really be able to respond based on your own experiences. Who wants to go first? Jump right in.
I was on mute, so it had to happen once in this entire webinar. Apologies. I said maybe I'll start.
Carla. So you're the first off the bat.
And I'm gonna probably maybe pass the baton a little bit, but I think what we're doing here at Metrolinx is indicative in just having Karima on board, as you said, and really recognizing that not only do we need to have somebody that is solely focused on looking at this through our organization, but how we behave as leaders of partners of the business into our projects and what we're actually delivering for the people of the GGH, right? I think for us, recognizing that and having that tied into our CEO directly was a very big step and a symbol not only to our staff, but the people that we work with, that it is critical and central to part of the decisions that we make, and it is a lens that we are looking at. And then as I mentioned, in terms of what we're doing specifically, as leaders, it's incumbent on us to really take that first step, because no one is going to make it for us. And I really like your point around continuous improvement. Because we can't turn the tide overnight, but we know that we're putting systems in place to really make sure that it's continuing and sustained, and really embedded not only into what we do from a staffing level, but also in what the expectations we have of the people that we're hiring, the people that we're working in, the actual fundamental services that we're delivering. So I won't take up too much time and pass it on to others on the panel.
No, thank you very much. That's from an organization's, point of view, like Metrolinx, which is an institution. Chris, from a union perspective, do you have any thoughts on that?
Initiatives from a union perspective? Yes. Okay, so the union supports EDI, provincially and through my local union, Local 27, the Carpenters Union. Gotta give them a little props there. We promote community outreach all over the province. I'm the equity diversity representative, so I pay attention mainly to Black, Indigenous, people of color, women, LGBTQ equity seeking groups, and others, right? That's my assignment. But also there are other initiatives that we're taking a close look at this spring, right? Okay, the union organization, right, is expected to wrap up negotiations at the end of this month. Look, I'm a proud member. I'm also the chair of the Toronto Community Benefits, and like I said earlier, VP of Local 27. It's important to have the best wage, pension, benefits, and training. It's also important to pay attention to the health and safety of our membership and our or prospective members or current members, or the next generation of tradespeople. Look, we all know in 2020, we had the nooses on site, Black Lives Matter protests, George Floyd murdering on TV, etc. right? We are hoping with the community or the membership, we're hoping that the construction unions of Ontario will take a stand and put wording in their collective agreement this month that unequivocally state their position on harassment, racism, discrimination in their collective agreement, right? We've openly denounced it. Now we're hoping after 2 years of denouncing it, this is our big chance to put it in writing and have it in history that in 2020, this is the position that we take, right? For the health and safety of all our membership and the next generation. So that is one of the biggest initiatives I can think of at this moment. And you know, we're hoping a lot of, we've been hearing a lot of positive feedback. So let's see what the industry, not just the carpenters, right? I feel strongly that it's gonna be in our collective agreement, but it's not just about the carpenters, it's about the plumbers, the electrician, the drywallers, the tapers, the laborers, the ironworkers, everyone. So I'm hoping that they take a stand and put it in their books and have very supportive boards. So that's the initiative that I could think of off the top of my head.
Well, thank you, Chris. I want to move on to Kimoy, because Kimoy, you're an individual, and sometimes people feel, you know, there's not much they can do. You know, I'm just a person. I'm just me. I'm just a worker. What are some of those initiatives that you've undertaken to create opportunities for BIPOC communities?
So before I start that, I just wanted to share with people the importance of Chris's work and the importance of the stand that the Carpenters Union has taken. Because we don't want to talk about these tough things, but traditionally unions have kept out people of multicultural backgrounds, right? We can go into the history of it, but I choose to look at today, because today we know better, so we do better. And I just want to highlight the fact that Local 27, Carpenters Union, is doing better, right? Having somebody like Chris in that position, I see the hard work, and I see having, just like with Metrolinx having Karima, Local 27 having Chris has just exponentially increased membership in the way that represents our city, right? So fair, equitable employment for all. So thank you for that. And thank you guys, Local 27, for being a leader. And yes, I too am excited and hoping that that will get into the collective agreement. For me personally, I try to ignore people when they say that I can't make change, and then just work with the people that I can. And doing that, we have worked really hard, my brothers and sisters and I, and we don't have a Chris yet, but we do have a human rights rep. And we have been working with our union and asking for that for the last 7 years, and we achieved it in 2020. So that's a big thing. And the other thing that me and my brothers and sisters are really proud of is that there is a division of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers called the Electrical Workers Minority Caucus. That is something that is predominant in the US because of the more pervasive racism and challenges, and that group advocates for members of diverse backgrounds. In Canada, they had one. So Vancouver, it was opened up about 5 years ago, and being one of the leaders in our district, so our district is District 1, whole of Canada. It was my honor and my pleasure to bring together a group of members, and we have officially, Rosemary, because I know she's been along for the ride, been chartered as of March 2022. So very proud of that. We do a lot of initiatives. We get our members talking, we do volunteer work, we go into our communities. So those are some of the initiatives that the IBEW is a part of and leading. And we look to Carpenters Union as an example for where we want to be.
Amazing. Thank you, Kimoy. And Karima, I'm going to ask you another question that kind of builds on that a little. You know, we all know that what gets measured gets done. And some lessons learned that we've had from existing community benefits agreements projects include the need for a central system for subcontractors to report outcomes and for the project stakeholders to effectively monitor, track, and evaluate outcomes. How do you handle or plan to handle in your new role measurement and collecting of disaggregated data in the workplace and on the job site?
Yeah, there are so many things that you could do. I think first, really thinking about, I think what Carla had mentioned, right? Where we started with having a dedicated team on equity, diversity, inclusion. How do we engage with employees, right? To hear from them what the experiences are, and then thinking about what are the things that we want to see happen. So first, where are we in terms of building this foundation of equity, diversity, and inclusion to kind of understand where are we at, right? So are we at the stage of where we're just talking about gender balance? Are we talking about intersectionality? Are we talking about places that we want to go in terms of building an inclusive culture and what that could potentially look like? And that takes time, as we mentioned. It's not something that happens overnight. So those indicators of success and what we measure, really look at the bigger picture. So what is our strategy? And also that takes time. So one, you want to be able to build that foundation of what are our values and principles on equity, diversity, and inclusion. So that's a beginning point. And then how do your values align with your systems? Do they align? So that's a checkpoint, right? Do they align? Not necessarily a checkbox, but a checkpoint, right? Do they align? Is EDI built into our recruitment practices? Is it built into our systems that exist currently? Does it look at career advancement? Where is that, right? Can Black, Indigenous, racialized folks advance in the same way? And what are the barriers? So I think really understanding what the barriers exist within those processes are another piece of where do we need to go and building that strategy to get to those indicators of success. There are many ways that we can measure in terms of KPIs, right? So where do we, but it's not as clear cut because the feeling of belonging is, something that you build on, right? It's a sense of belonging, but there are many ways that you can get there. Are people trained in unconscious bias, on anti-racism, right? We should be going into anti-Black racism, right? Specifically, right? Are we looking at where we are on that trajectory around training and building awareness and building capacity of leaders? And what does inclusive leadership look like? Right? So do we have things coming up from basically the top down, but also the ground up, right? As Kimoy said, we are all agents of change. We all have ideas that we want to share, and building up those ideas and making sure there's two-way approach, right? From the grassroots as well as from the leadership and meeting halfway. So there are many ways that you can look at these indicators of success and KPIs, but those are some things that I think people need to do in the process to get there.
Wow, thank you very much. And just Chris, from a union perspective, is there anything else that you would add in terms of disaggregated data? I know that it's been a bit challenging, especially with the consciousness around privacy and confidentiality to collect data.
Yeah, collecting and tracking data information, that's has been a challenge, whether from a union perspective, a company perspective, local municipality perspective. It's a big challenge, right? Look, it's very important, and it's relevant in my industry. If you collect the information, right, you're better able to serve the communities around Ontario. It eventually exposes in a good way, where the government needs to spend money the most on training and recruiting. And it'll give them idea as to, if you need to import skilled workers or not, right? Because you have the data on what's happening, right? You also need to collect a little bit of more detailed information, right? Whether it be if you're male or female, what culture, what your sexual orientation, because that's important now, and your race, your culture, if you're from equity-seeking groups, right? All of those information are important. And also, like I think someone said earlier about intersectionality, because a lot of those, you're living in Toronto, you're living in Ontario, there are a lot of intersectionality within the different categories. Okay, so the important, it's important that the information be broken down. If the information is not broken down, we're whoever is collecting the data and putting it out, it'll be vague or it'll be unintentionally, not necessarily the intent is to be a bad person, but it will unintentionally misleading the community. Right. For instance, if you give me a percentage of women in the construction industry, okay, the percentage of women in the industry in Toronto may be different from the percentage of women in the industry in Thunder Bay. So you have to break it down a little bit, and then you probably have to get into minority or Black, Indigenous people of color for it to be more accurate, right? For instance, another point is for instance, if you were to recruit 500 people from the community, and over the first year, the second year, and the third year, you need to track what has happened over those years, because if you don't track it and have good data, all you're doing is keep recycling and just putting on a show, and this may lead to folks feeling that all you're doing with your data is bamboozling them, misleading them.
We definitely don't want that. All right.
Going forward, I want us to keep relevant data.
Yes.
That's just vague. Relevant local data to serve us better.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And so I just have one more question, because I'd like to take the time to hear some questions from the audience. So if the audience has any questions, please do put them in the chat or the Q&A, sorry, and I'll try my best to get to them before we close out the panel. I'm just going to ask one question, and everyone doesn't need to answer necessarily. So, let's just give a minute for this. But maybe I can ask Carla directly, as a major institution, how does your organization support DEI within your supply chain? We've already heard from Karima and Chris, there's already the challenge of getting the data, even, your own institution where you have control over the information, but passing that down to the supply chain and the requirements for community benefits agreements to your partners and your suppliers, and, for the unions, their employer partners. What are some of the structures, tools that you have in place that can ensure that your values around equity, diversity, and inclusion gets passed down to those who have contractual relationships with you?
So, I think there's three parts to that puzzle in my view. The first is commitment and leadership from the top. And we have that from our CEO. You've seen that, and we've talked about that. And we talked about how the tone is set and it permeates what we're doing. The second part I would say is you're right that, what gets measured gets done. And so while it's difficult to get the data, you've got to start by getting it. So we really we encourage and we work with our contracting community through our procurement practices, the language in our contracting documents, the relationships we actually have to make sure that we are setting some benchmarks, if you will, or some aspirations, and really understanding what are we trying to achieve here? Are we aligned to those objectives? And the third part of that bucket is relationships, relationships, relationships. We need to be aligned. We want to partner with like-minded groups in the community, like the TCBN, but also with municipalities who also have a very big interest in this space. And then we galvanize all of that in things that we could actually hold on to. So we have some lessons for sure from the Eglinton Crosstown around that statement of declaration, really having work groups with all of the parties involved. So everybody's at the table learning and listening to the same thing, but actually also capturing that data and formalizing that in a way that it is transparent and it's visible. Not in a way to shame anybody, not in a way to kind of make sure that one person is kind of seen better than the other, but really to give us full line of sight as to what's working, what's not working, how do we get there? Because sometimes you go into the process thinking that you will be able to achieve on a certain path, and it doesn't always end up that way. So that idea of always learning on that journey and coming back and really embedding it into the systems and really making them sustainable and long lasting is how we want to really do that as an organization.
Thank you, Carla. And I'm looking at the chat, the Q&A function right now. I see two questions. One of them, I believe you've already answered. And again, the other one is directed to Metrolinx. So perhaps, Karima, you can weigh in on this. And it says, from Metrolinx, many land developers are hesitant to set targets because they can't be sure if they'll meet them. When setting targets at Metrolinx, how have you overcome anxiety or concern about not meeting targets?
So what we've set is targets, but they are aspirational, right? And so the idea here is that you can't be afraid either. You can't be afraid to fail. Sometimes that allows you to kind of look at new opportunities and really push the bar and move the bar. So I think the challenge here is not to be punitive in your view and in your approach of how you actually set the aspiration or the target. Everybody wants to do better. You know, when you know better, you do better. And we want to be able to kind of put those things in place. We also know that sometimes you need a little bit of a nudge. You got to be leaders. We got to be forward thinking and leading thinking. So it's difficult for sure. And I think that as Rosemary mentioned at the top, really understanding that it is a journey and that we're progressive in this journey, right? You do a little bit more over time, you be what's practical, you reassess, you look and see what's working and what's not working. And having that mindset going into it is to me the recipe for success. And at the root of it is, this is not a punitive measure. This is ultimately a positive outcome based approach that we apply.
And I think it's also the goals, right? So if you're developing these, if you're being intentional about what that looks like and you have these targets, that sends a signal that this is important. We value this, it's important, and we believe in it. So, you know, progression on that journey, like Carla mentioned, is really important. One, to see it happening and saying, you know, this is important to our values and who we are as an organization, and who we partner with then, who comes along on that journey is really important.
Okay, well, go ahead. Yes, please, weigh in.
Yeah, I love the ideology coming from Carla and Karima, and I believe it's built on what Chris was originally talking about in terms of collecting the data so that we have really clear objectives as to where the improvement needs to happen. And I just wanted to clearly state to everybody, this is generally a challenge for the union, and I have the same approach as Carla. It's not punitive, and I don't care what's happened in the past, right? We understand why those systems were in place, but we're a different society now, different human beings. And one of the things I ask people on this call, and for contractors and just everyday citizens dealing with the unions, is start asking them for those statistics, right? Because I find when you ask them, then it challenges people to say, oh, wait a second, this is something that I should know. Because the history of the unions is nepotistic. And to promote that nepotistic history, they have created a culture of not collecting the data. And that's why Chris is speaking so passionately about collecting good data, proper data, and making great analysis off of that, right? So I just wanted to add that piece in. So for all of you on the call who are going to be interacting with unions, with other companies, start asking for those statistics, because if we start asking for them, then my union has to start collecting them.
Thank you, Kimoy. And we only have like a minute left. And so here is a very important question for Metrolinx again. Metrolinx, how can we be intentional around DEI if we do not include the community or DEI language in the project agreements on the 4 new federally funded projects by Metrolinx in Toronto? Community benefits was in the project agreement language for Finch and Eglinton. It's good timing to set the record.
Good timing, and then maybe I'll hand it. So what I'd say is we do have language in our agreements. We have the aspirations, and we also actually have systems in place to kind of help reinforce those expectations. I think maybe what is being misconstrued a little bit is the idea of how do we really continue some of the learnings that we had from Eglinton Crosstown, and where do we embed the actual requirements, right? And whether that is in the PA itself or in the standalone declaration that was done for Eglinton Crosstown. And we believe there's many ways to address what we have to go in there. So we think that we have a robust program in place. I want to say that today we're talking particularly around jobs and really making sure that we have a job availability and equitable access for all, as we talked about. But our community benefits and supports program writ large at Metrolinx does have 3 other pillars around shopping locally, supplying locally, also making sure that we leave the community better than we left it, and then also partnering with the community, the cities, the municipalities around improvements and other traditional community benefits like community centers, libraries, schools, and so forth that kind of build into development. So I think that we have a good strategy. It's broad, and I think that we have different mechanisms in how we, for lack of a better term, use contractualize or commercialize the expectation to make sure that what we want to get done gets done.
Wonderful, thank you very much. And so let's wrap up this segment and close off. But before I go, I'd love to hear from each of you, just real quick, 2 seconds. What advice would you give to an individual who's thinking about a career in construction industry? And for those who are already seasoned professionals on this call, what advice would you give them to help welcome this new individual? And I'm going to take from Kimoy and then Chris, and then Carla and Karima, real quickly.
I would say there's lots of wonderful community organizations, TCBN being one of them. I would say my career would have been very different and much easier. Get yourself a mentor.
As a rep, I would say 90% of the work in Toronto on their infrastructure projects, on these billions of dollar projects, are unionized. The best pension, wages, training, a sense of belonging, contractors like Metrolinx that cares, that send their representative here to speak and express that they're getting better and better at taking care of their workers. The Toronto Community Benefits, our dear leader, our fearless leader, Rosemary Powell, who is here to represent, recruit, and just be the best leader that she can be. And look, I want to thank all of you. Thank all of you for taking the time out of your day, especially you, Kimoy, because I know I think you're working at Metrolinx, and I know I don't know if you work something out today. I'm hoping you do. So, this is special. This is, heartwarming to see that we can put our differences aside and pull in one direction. Thank you for having me. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chris. Carla.
Rosemary, what I would say to those folks is that a career in construction doesn't mean that you're actually having to do construction yourself. There are lots of aspects into this. And I would just say in our relationship, I feel you reached out to me. We got connected outside of me even being in the role that I am right now. And it wasn't even directly connecting to Eglinton Crosstown. It was totally separate. So that idea of really making those connections and understanding that your career path, although the industry you're in, the disciplines are very, very wide. So be very, very open to that.
Thank you. And Karima, you can take it away.
All right, thank you. Yeah, in terms of your question, I think it's really important to think about what you want to do, explore it, talk to people that are actually in the roles right now. Speak to Kamoy, speak to people that are in the field that can really, help you figure out what you want to do. If that's the passion and that's where you want to go with it. And I think it's really important to think about, like you said, mentorship, onboarding. What does that look like? Find someone that you know that can help lead you on that path and can help help you navigate what that can look like.
And on that lovely note, thank you, everyone. I want to thank the Urban Institute Toronto for your support and leadership in organizing this event. Take care, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming out and being among us. And see you at the Building Diversity Awards, May 10 in the evening. Put your dancing shoes on.
Be there.
Or be square.